Introducing Royal Caribbean's newest ship, Icon of the Seas, the ultimate family vacation. The ultimate 6 slides, 8 neighborhoods, 0 compromise vacation. The ultimate never done that, can't wait to do it vacation. The ultimate chillin' by a different pool every day of the week vacation. This is the Icon of vacations. Icon of the Seas, arriving in 2024. Book today. Come seek the Royal Caribbean. Ships Registry, Bahamas.
Hello again, hockey fans. Are you ready to brave the wild? With me, your host, Paladino Joey. Brave the Wild is available on the sportstuff.com and on iTunes. I thank each and every single one of you out there for downloading and listening to this show. Well, we celebrated episode number 100 last show, so I suppose we're going to start the quest for the next 100 to 200 or 250 or whatever the milestone is. I suppose 200 won't be quite as exciting as 100, I suppose, but we'll get there when we get there. Not a very fun week for the Minnesota Wild. No, we're back to the two-segment format like we've been doing for the longest time, and of course this will be the last show where I will be previewing regular season games, and hopefully, because it's unofficial yet, next show we will be talking strictly about the postseason. We'll be reviewing these 4 games, of course, how they're finished up, and, yeah, previewing, hopefully, a playoff series against Anaheim, against St. Louis, against Chicago, against Nashville. It could very well be Chicago again. We'll be talking about that much later on in segment number 2. Again, not a very fun week for the Minnesota Wild. 2 games against 2 very strong Eastern Conference teams. It's not like the Wild sucked or anything, but things did not go their way. And, I don't know, there were instances where they didn't look so good either. And, of course, the referees didn't seem to be on our side at all in the New York game. And in the Detroit game, well, I won't say the referees weren't on our side, but it's just, I don't know. It's like a lot of weird stuff is starting to pop up conveniently like it did last year when the Minnesota Wild were in the postseason against Detroit. It's all about, it's about the post, it's about the stripes. You know, the stripes, as people say with the refs, the zebras, whatever. Timing, clutch, this, that. Lat, I don't know, bad goals given up or whatever it is. I wouldn't say Dubnyk was bad or anything, but one of the goals against New York wasn't so hot. We'll be talking about that right about now. So Thursday, April 2nd, yeah, and by the way, we're only reviewing 2 games, and we'll be previewing 4 games in the next segment and talking about the whole playoff situation and all that good stuff. New York Rangers come to town. New York Rangers come to town Thursday, April the 2nd. And an ode to my favorite kitty cat of all time. Chloe Cat was put to sleep 8 years ago on April 2nd, 2007. So a quick ode to her. I'll just mention that. Now we'll move on. Minnesota. And yeah, it was a very sad day, by the way. But yeah, the Wild did not represent as well as I would have liked. It certainly started really bad. Really, really bad, ultimately. And the New York Rangers clinched the Metropolitan Division. And there was a point in time when just a week ago, and I was thinking, you know, this might be a preview of the Stanley Cup Finals. Yeah, maybe, but if the Wild keep playing this way, I don't know. I mean, you can't count on good bounces, bad bounces, good calls, bad calls. And it looks like they're kind of counting on that a little too much. They're playing a little too close for comfort as far as I'm concerned against these better teams, and it's scaring me a little bit. And as usual, every single time you're playing against somebody who used to play with us, regardless if it's James Shepard, Brent Burns, God knows who it is, but they find a way to score, like a Gaborik or something, which he did not when the Wild beat the Kings pretty nicely a week ago. But Dominic Moore, yeah, remember that name? I barely remember that name. He was pretty much a 3rd or 4th line center for the Minnesota Wild several years ago now. It's been a while. Early in that first period, just 2 minutes into the first period, didn't that give you a nice feeling to start things out against the best in the East? A team that is a legitimate Stanley Cup Finals candidate. And you know what? They just might win it this year. I would not be surprised, unfortunately. Dominic Moore, 7th goal of the year, assisted by Carl Hagelin. 2 minutes and 9 seconds into the game. Great way to start things out. Not the best feeling ever, really, to be quite honest. It wasn't the worst goal ever. It's just the fact that he scored and the fact that we could not get the puck out of the zone, and that's a huge problem. Both of these games, we just were basically outplayed in both of these games. Not completely, not thoroughly. The Wild play good, but it's like the theme that I noticed in both of these games. This is either something you'll be like, yeah, I agree, or you'll be like, duh, whatever. What are you, some kind of 40-year-old hockey podcaster or whatever you are? I don't care what you think, just whatever. I hope you like the show. I don't care if you say that, but the theme I've been noticing when the Wild played the Rangers and the Detroit Red Wings, well, every time we have the puck, we have to work our ass off to get it. Just work our ass off to get it. And next thing you know, there's 3 or 4 defenders in front of our guy who's pretty much all by himself. And he's just going up the ice like that. And then they get the puck back and they're just flying down the ice. Two or 3 on 1 or 3 on 2, whatever it is, and it's like, oh boy, they're going to score. Ooh, Dubnyk, nice save. Oh, okay. Oh, Suter just tipped it at the last second. Oh, thank God. That looked like a goal right there. Bouncing puck. Oh, my God. Whew. Thank goodness Dumba knocked it loose. There we go. That's what I'm talking about. And that's kind of been the theme in both of these games, if I want to try to merge them together. It's frustrating. It's very frustrating. It's just, it's kind of like when the Wild played Colorado last year in a lot of ways, where they looked like the better team the whole time, but okay, we wound up and won, thank God. So hopefully that does continue for the Wild. Hopefully they continue to step up, though, and look better against these teams. It's frustrating when we're doing so well. We've been doing so well for so long, and then we start playing these big-time teams, and it's like, man, I don't know. This is not going to be easy at all. This feeling that I had last week, and pretty much for the last several weeks now, about the Wild going on a deep playoff run, maybe even a magical one, it's not going to be easy at all. I mean, we could be facing literally 7th games to get there, literally. Or we could be done soon. I don't think we're going to be done soon, though, because Dubnyk's been so good, and we're very consistent. But what's really frustrating about this is that wonderful, magical run that told me this team reeks of a Stanley Cup champion is the fact that the Minnesota Wild never would lose 2 games in a row. They've lost 2 games in a row. They did get a point tonight against the Detroit Red Wings. That's good. But now they've lost 2 games in a row. Thank God they got at least 1 out of the 4 points. Back to the New York game, though. The one goal of the week that told us, like, we got problems here. Rick Nash just kind of flung the puck on net. They were on the power play, the Rangers. Then, the penalty kill, the greatest in all of hockey. And it is. But Rick Nash was just kind of flipping the puck on net from a pretty tough angle. And it went right past Dubnyk. Like, 41st goal of the year, by the way. Rick Nash, semi-quietly having a really, really damn good season. I say semi-quietly because I don't hear about him that much. All you hear about is Alex Ovechkin and about how great this team is and that team, and how Chicago's up and down and Nashville's been amazing and this and that. And then you hear about our guys too, how amazing we've been with Dubnyk and net, and of course guys like Vanek really picking up the slack and such, and Parise having now he's at 32 goals. We'll get back to that shortly. But you don't really hear about Rick Nash that much, and we didn't really hear about the Rangers that much until lately. And it's like, oh crap, the Rangers are the top team in the East. They're like legit this time. They're not like kind of an underdog like they were last year. They're a legit Eastern Conference champion type of team, maybe Stanley Cup team. And oh, by the way, Henrik Lundqvist is back. And yeah, Devan Dubnyk, as great as he's been, he found himself very much in a goalie duel both games. And the Wild came up short both times around, and that's very disappointing. They're certainly not all on Dubnyk, but the Rick Nash goal was absolutely on Dubnyk. The Wild don't answer for a while. It's a 2-0 game for a while there. Literally about 10 minutes of ice time. And then Jason Pominville finally scoring again. It seemed like forever. Able to finish as Mikael Granlund with a nice centering pass to him. Or actually, Granlund was to Dumba. Dumba shot it on net. And then Pominville was able to rebound and finish that thing. 17th goal of the year. It's like a lot of people wondering where Pominville's been all season. He's quietly been picking up the goal scoring of late. Thank God for that. We'll take it in a big way. 2-1 for the longest time. Again, the Rangers winning all the puck battles. It seemed like. I mean, the Wild played good. It's not like they were terrible. But obviously call after call after call not going the Wild's way. And, well, let's just say back-to-back nights, certain guys that were getting knocked around, shoved around all over the ice on the other team ended up biting us in the ass at the last second, or just later on in the game. JT Miller. Yep, JT Miller. There's talk that he may have had a injury already to his nose or not. He was the guy that was obviously crushed by Bufuglin of the Winnipeg Jets, who got a well-deserved suspension. Some people believe it should have been a lot longer than that, but old Dustin over there in Winnipeg, smashing him down on the ice. But then, Miller was, according to Suter, Ryan Suter thought that his stick only hit Miller's shield, but then Miller's nose was bleeding like crazy on the outside, not at the inside. And then, oh great, a 4-minute penalty against the Wild. Yay. Luckily, we were able to stop that one. Thank God for that. So that was good news anyway, but still, it killed the Wild's chances to score. So naturally, here we are, just not scoring goals. Yay. 4 minutes just ticking, and the Wild can't really do anything. A couple of odd man rushes here and there, or attempts at them, we'll say. Chances for it that didn't amount to anything, as guys continue to get tied up by this pretty good New York defense, and of course Henrik Lundqvist stopping just about everything coming his way. Literally, it was so freaking frustrating. So many, every good chance we had, Lundqvist seemed to stop it, and it was like, we have Dubnyk and all that, and it's fantastic, but then the other team has their Dubnyk now, and it's like, damn, it's too close now. We're not beating teams 5-2 anymore, 4-1. We're not getting every single bounce anymore. And, well, the Stripes are kind of on the other side, it seems like, sometimes. And, we don't like to blame the refs or anything, but this Rangers game was pretty rough in a lot of ways. It seemed like the whole night the Wild and Mike Yeo were giving the refs an earful. The whole night, and then it seemed like the refs were continuously playing games with the Wild. Like, okay, screw you guys. We're gonna not call this slash, not call that. But we'll definitely call this anytime you do anything. We're going to not call one icing after another that absolutely should have gone in the Wild's favor. One icing after another was going down. There was no hybrid icing called, and the Rangers would suddenly magically be there and get the puck. Those were hybrid icings. It's just unbelievable. It kept killing the Wild one time after another, swallowing the whistles at this time and then blowing them at this time. The refs did not seem to be very impressed with Mike Yeo and the Minnesota Wild in this one. They got a little pissed off with something maybe Mike Yeo said. That's what they say. We'll find out. No, I don't know if we're going to find out or not, but that's what it seemed like. Hopefully we don't run into that crew in the postseason. But, watch. We probably will. After Thomas Vanek got his 21st goal of the year, it was fantastic. And Dumba, his second assist of the game. 21st goal of the year for Thomas Vanek. 6 minutes into the third period, literally less than a minute later, old blood boy JT Miller, the same guy. Yep, the same guy that went through all that, was getting knocked all over the place and then had that bloody, outside of his nose from Ryan Suter's stick, allegedly, which I'm sure it got him, whatever. But it's just the fact that it happened. JT Miller, a third-line type of guy, getting his 10th goal of the season. And after that, it was pretty much Lundqvist and puck battles being won by the Rangers and icings not being called. That's pretty much how the third period went. The Wild did not seem to have whatever magic it was. They didn't seem to have it. The refs, again, did not want to call the icings. And Lundqvist was stopping every good chance we seemed to have. And the Wild ended up losing 3-2. And that's all she wrote. Let's move on. Let's move on. Seriously, we'd rather talk, hopefully, what the postseason situation is going to be. And I got to talk a little bit about Chicago, who is just, there is zero chance in hell the Minnesota Wild will get a third spot in the division now. And it's kind of sad. It sucks. It really sucks. Saturday, April the 4th, Minnesota Wild lose to the Detroit Red Wings in a shootout. They get 1 save. Or 1 point, what am I talking about? A pretty, it wasn't the best game ever. No, it just wasn't. But it wasn't the worst game ever either. And of course, Mr. Howard. Jimmy Howard. He's the other Dubnyk on the other side. Back-to-back games. Well, it wasn't back-to-back nights, but back-to-back games where we face a goalie pretty much as good as ours. And it kind of sucks when we go against a goalie as good as ours and who's playing well. It really does suck. And now the Detroit Red Wings, who I'm actually amazed that we were ahead of them, now have 95 points. The Minnesota Wild have 96. Luckily, we're not in the same conference or anything, but it is just kind of crazy to think about. The Wild are actually ahead of Detroit. Wow. But now they're at 95. So, maybe both teams wind up with 100 points on the season. Maybe. I had my hopes up. I mean, the Wild were able to take the early lead this time around, unlike last time when the Wild went down 2-0 against New York. Zach Parise getting his 31st and 32nd goals of the season in the game, leading the way against Detroit. In fact, he got 2 goals earlier in the season against Detroit. So he has been definitely the Red Wing killer for the Wild, but unfortunately, the Red Wings beat Dubnyk again. Yeah, because remember that 4-goal ass-whooping that he faced over there in Detroit? Well, luckily he only gave up 2 goals in regulation, but ultimately Detroit 2-0 against Devan Dubnyk. Unfortunately, 2-0 against Devan Dubnyk. A loss is a loss is a loss, regardless if he only gave up 2 goals in regulation or 4 goals in 2 periods. That's just how it goes. Zach Parise early on a wonderful centering pass from Mikael Granlund. Now, this was the real deal. It was fantastic. Pominville, and also a nice screen by clearing space by, a turnover forced by Marco Scandella. He's not been winding up in the scoring sheet of late. Not really at all. But his defensive efforts are there. He's not flashing like he was earlier before his injury, and that's unfortunate. Hopefully he can pick that up as we head into the postseason. But a wonderful turnover forced by him. Fish fed it to Pominville. Granlund then centered it to Parise, who buried it. 31st goal of the season, who's definitely got a commanding lead on the top goal scorers of the season for the Minnesota Wild. And then literally about a minute or 2 minutes later, Riley Sheahan scores his 13th of the season. Detroit ties it up. And after that, you never really got the vibe like the Wild were going to win the game until very, very late. It was unfortunate. Detroit, again, winning all the puck battles. Like I was saying, they look like the faster team every single time. The Wild seem to be struggling to get up the ice. Detroit, when they get the puck back from the Wild, they get the puck battles, knock the puck loose, whatever it is. They come flying up the ice. We have 2 guys. They have 3, or it's 2-on-1. Or, excuse me, they have 3 guys. We have 2, whatever it is. And one way or another, it looked like they were going to score every single time if Dubnyk didn't make a great save or somebody at the last second tipped the puck away. And thank God that we did. Otherwise, we wouldn't have had a point, and Detroit would have won this one 4-1. Well, things, again, if that's basically where things headed. Late in the second period, Gustav Nyquist was able to score on the power play, 26th goal of the season. I don't know how he hit the shot. It was like a bullseye while riding a unicycle. I mean, what the hell? It was just I don't know if I should call it lucky or flat out amazing. 26th goal of the season on the power play. And yeah, the penalty kill is short-circuiting a bit. And that's quite unfortunate as Detroit, 2 for 1 on the power play. In this case, 2 for 1 on the power play. The Wild had 6 power play chances. 6 power play chances. That's unbelievable. Luckily, we did get one of them in. Woohoo. But yeah, Nyquist, it was, he shot the puck over, we'll call it the right shoulder of Devan Dubnyk, the right shoulder on your TV screen, the upper part of the screen, we'll say. I don't know how he did it, and Dubnyk wasn't ready for it. I don't know if I should call it a soft goal or just a flat-out amazing shot. I don't know. It just went in. And that sucks. 2-1 lead for Detroit. Again, the same old thing like I was saying. Puck battles, this and that. Jimmy Howard stopping one shot after another. I hate Jimmy Howard. The Wild never seem to beat that guy. He has our number, and he's had our number for many years now. He really has. And Darren Helm, the guy just smashed around the ice all night. Oh, Devan Dubnyk making some awesome dive-type saves. Knocking the puck. Darren Helm had a breakaway, and the Wild were giving up breakaways during the course of the night, particularly in that second period. And Dubnyk just knocked the puck out of Darren Helm's stick, and Helm had to jump over Dubnyk, almost fell over and hurt himself. Almost maybe hurt Dubnyk with his skate, too. Who knows? And then later in the game, Helm just crushed, smashing people around, this and that, and then Helm later smashing Fontaine down. Very physical guy, drawing a lot of boos And the Wild were on the receiving end of a lot of boos tonight. You know how most of the time you hear, ooh, it sounds like boo, but it's Dubnyk. And yeah, that's a boring cliche. They're not booing, they're dubing, or they're not booing, they're whatever, whatever it is, whatever the person's name is. But there were a lot of boos tonight when the Wild would have a scoring chance and the puck would just get knocked away and Detroit would get the puck back and do their thing, go in their zone, get things set up. Or go into our zone, what am I saying? Get out of their zone right away. The boos were starting to get heard as the fans are getting frustrated with this team right now. We're not looking nearly as sharp as we had been for the longest time. And it's bugging the hell out of me, and it's bugging the hell out of a lot of other people. But luckily, one of those finally did go in. It's Suter feeding it to Pominville. Pominville doing the typical slap shot type of play because Pominville's kind of the point. He's on the point on the power play, doing the slap shot, and then Parise redirecting it, basically kind of reverse type of goal. It was fantastic. 32nd of the year, tie game. And then the rest of the period, it was the back and forth, this and that. The Wild couldn't finish. Luckily, we were able to stop them. Kind of like how the shootout went as we went to overtime. Again, Detroit looked better, but not a lot better, but better. And it was annoying. It was frustrating to everybody, to be quite honest. They just look quicker, sharper, this, that, whatever it is. So on we go to the shootout. Zach Parise made about 9 bajillion moves, and it drove me nuts. I don't know why he's coming in that slow. What are you doing? Make a move. You got to attack. Maybe wrap the puck around him if you can from behind. That's what some of the better goal scorers in the shootouts do. Make a move, but don't make 19 moves. It's like, you're tying yourself up, and that's what Parise did. That's what Charlie Coyle did. Luckily, Dubnyk was able to stop Datsyuk and Nyquist. Well, no, he was not able to stop Nyquist. He was able to stop Datsyuk. That was nice. But then Nyquist scored, had me scared to death. Luckily, Pominville, more aggressive, made a nice shot. Shot it from further away, kind of rocketed it past Jimmy Howard. He might have been the hero of the night if Nyquist didn't get past Dubnyk on that one. Quite frustrating. Nyquist looking really good on that on his goal, aggressive, attacking without having to make 99 moves. That's the difference here, ultimately, to be quite honest. Tatar was stopped. That was nice. Thomas Vanek with a fantastic move. He looked like a Detroit Red Wing on his shootout move. He looked like a Detroit Red Wing. The way he just he went in on bigger strides, made a couple of moves with his stick, and then put it past Howard. There you go. You don't have to tap the puck all over the place. That drove me nuts. But then Riley Sheehan, instead of Dubnyk making a nice save, he gives up a goal right away right there. Went right past him. I couldn't believe it. But then again, whatever. Nino Niederreiter couldn't get on net. Zetterberg with just a phenomenal stop by Dubnyk. As it looked like Zetterberg might score, and then Dubnyk just dives on the puck, and Zetterberg couldn't get a shot off. Chris Stewart was stopped, and it was just, it just kept going back and forth, one round after another. Dubnyk making good save after good save. Granlund made another weak kind of a move. Didn't really, well, actually his was okay. Howard just kind of sat on it, and the same for Fontaine. Made a better move, and Howard just unfazed, doesn't move, didn't move at all. Didn't even move, didn't commit to anything. And then who do you think won the game? The same guy who was just driving people crazy, and we were annoying him too. He was kind of the center of the game in a lot of ways, the center of the physical part of the game. Darren Helm goes to the net and makes whatever move he makes. Shoots the puck, it kind of bounces off the post, and then it tips off of Dubnyk's back leg. Looked like, we stopped it. Dubnyk stopped it. It just hit the post and bounced out. That's all that happened. But no, you could kind of tell it wouldn't bounce that way if it didn't already go in. And it did go in. It was the right call. As they reviewed it, it was clearly past the line, and everybody knew it. Game over. Detroit wins in the shootout again against the Minnesota Wild. They finished 2-0. Luckily, the Wild get a point in each battle against Detroit. So we're at 96 points, and that's where we stand at this point in time. Time to hand out the awards for the week. The Player of the Week, the Mike Modano Award, is going to go to Zach Parise. Zach Parise. Even though his shootout move was terrible. Just terrible. James Shepard Memorial. Does it go to the players and coach for barking at the ref, pissing them off, or does it go to the refs for being just for being assholes and doing what they did in that New York game? I'm going to kind of give it to both, but ultimately I will give it to the referees in that New York game with the way things went. I don't think you should be making that type of an outcome in a game. I really don't. It drove me nuts. That was an annoying game to watch. Just overall frustrating in general. That's what it is. So that's where I'll give the James Shepard Memorial to, because it's not like anybody was flat terrible. I know I should be better at saying who's terrible, this or that, but nobody's really been terrible per se. It's just that game kind of was what it was, and I'm sure you guys share my emotion on that one. So with that, we will take a break, hop into the preview segment, and then we will, of course, during that time, during the course of those 4 games, well, we're going to talk about the playoff situation, because every single game of these next 4 has playoff implications written all over it.
Do you shop on Amazon? Did you know that you can support this podcast just by doing your normal shopping on Amazon? It's really easy to do. Just go to thesportstuff.com and click on one of the many Amazon pictures. Do your normal shopping, and Amazon sees that we referred you, and they give us a percentage. We'd like to thank you in advance for supporting thesportstuff.com, and please use our Amazon link. Now enjoy the rest of the show.
We are going round like Saturn's ring.
And we are back here on Brave the Wild, segment number 2, preview segment. And like I said, lots of playoff conversation, because every single game here has massive playoff implications. Just massive. I mean, does it get better? Well, it gets better, I guess. It gets a lot better. But, well, you know, it's something very interesting to talk about. Hopefully the Wild play well in these, because every single game here is just really huge games. The Winnipeg Jets, yeah, that team, the asshole team. The Winnipeg Jets come to town. I already think they're assholes, and I do apologize to Mark Carlson's wife. I'm sure he's listening. Not sure if she listens. I know she's a big fan of them, and Winnipeg got their team again. And, you know, I like the old Winnipeg Jets, you know, the ones that moved to Phoenix, but this group of guys that could just, oh boy, you know, there's a lot of things I could do, you know, and a lot of things I'm sure a lot of the Wild players wish they could do as well to them without, like, getting, like, a 4-minute major or a game misconduct ejection, all that good stuff. You know, all that good stuff, or, like, 20-game suspensions. You know, that's about what I'd like to do to some of those guys, especially old Dustin. Ugh, I hate that team. Okay, and yes, it's a little early for me to be hating that team, isn't it? But I hate them. Monday, April the 6th, coming right up here pretty soon. Winnipeg Jets come to town. Yeah! I do like the Wild chances in this game. And old Dustin won't be playing in this game. Hopefully that's a good thing. Winnipeg's defense is awesome. Winnipeg's goalies are very, very good. Both Pavlich and Hutchinson are both very, very good goalies. Andrew Ladd can score when he needs to. He's very valuable. He's hurt the Wild in the past. That's the guy I kind of fear the most in this one. For the most part, Blake Wheeler, of course, also has come back to haunt the Wild in the past. Hopefully the Wild sign him someday. That'd be nice. We could probably use that. Maybe if somehow Chris Stewart gets greedy and wants to run away. Seems to really enjoy himself here. We'll see what happens. I've been quite happy with Chris Stewart, but unfortunately he didn't really factor in the scoring this week. But then again, this week was quite a small sample size, wasn't it? With that said, I hate this physical team. They're really physical. They like to knock you around. They're cheap. But they're good at times too. That's why they're in the playoff picture. And if the season ended today, they would be the 8th seed, and they'd be playing the Anaheim Ducks, who are just running away with the Western Conference right now. It is unbelievable what the Winnipeg Jets are doing. But don't sleep on those Chicago Blackhawks. My goodness gracious. Minnesota Wild success rate against the Winnipeg Jets has been decent. It's not as good as it was before. The Wild beat the Jets way back in November 4-3, but they got a point out of it. The Jets got a point out of it. The Wild got 2 later. The Jets won in overtime or shootout 4-3 Saturday, December the 27th. Each team got a point there, so 3 points apiece. Minnesota wins in regulation, which is the difference maker. Just a couple of days later in Winnipeg. That was fantastic. 3-2 win. Wild wound up with 5 points. The Jets at 3 at that point. Okay, sorry. Thursday, February the 10th, when the Wild remembered how to play. Devin Dubnyk could not stop. Who was it? Was it Andrew Ladd? No. I'm gonna look at it again. I can't remember who it was. Oh no, it was Buff Buffwigan, of course. What am I talking about? How could I forget? Went on the breakaway, just all by himself. Scores on Devin Dubnyk in OT. Winnipeg Jets, they get their 5 points, and the Wild are at 6 at that stage. So the Wild leading 6-5 on the season, head-to-head against the Winnipeg Jets. Luckily, we wrap up in Xcel Energy Center, which has been, I wouldn't say it's been kind, I wouldn't say it's been bad. It's been even. 3 points, 3 points. So I think the Wild do win this one. I like the Wild's chances. I'm going to go with 3-2. I'm going to go with a 3-2 game, possibly an overtime shootout situation. Don't be surprised at all, in fact. But I think somebody like Thomas Vanek is going to factor in this one. Maybe Zach Parise will be a hero late in this game. But again, yeah, I think it's going to be Vanek, and it'll be really nice, and I mean really nice, to see Chris Stewart knock some bodies around, because it ain't all just Buffwigan, who's a pain in the butt for the Winnipeg Jets, but the Wild win in a 3-2 situation where they probably will cough up a point to the Winnipeg Jets, which, I'm not sure if that's okay or not, because the new hottest team in hockey right now, a team that's just rising up this division and just might wind up with it, and the number 1 seed in the Eastern Conference, so they keep it up, is the Chicago Blackhawks. And no, Patrick Kane is not back. Back-to-back situation, Tuesday, April 7th. Oh, man. Oh, this is going to be a rough week, man. Minnesota Wild head into Chicago. Jonathan Toews and the boys. Jonathan Toews has really been leading the Chicago Blackhawks in a very, 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 very positive direction the past several weeks here. All the other guys have been doing what they do, what they've always been doing. Brandon Saad, Richards, Hossa, all of them. They're just playing their game, doing the best, playing like a great team right now. They're absolutely on fire. I'd like to have all this. But right now, the Chicago Blackhawks, there's no chance, again, like I was saying earlier, that the Minnesota Wild are going to be catching them. And that's quite unfortunate, because the Blackhawks now have 102 points, and they've won 6 games in a row. It's unbelievable. Or it's not 6, 3 games in a row. But they've been on a really positive stretch of late. Nashville and St. Louis not grabbing the reins of this division with only 103 points. Blackhawks only trail by a point against both of those teams, and they're still 5 points behind the Ducks. I doubt they're going to catch them, but they have 2 games in hand versus the Anaheim Ducks, because that seems to be a theme all the time when people look at the possibilities of making the playoffs or passing a team. Ducks have played 80. Blackhawks have played 78. Don't be surprised if the Chicago Blackhawks wind up with the number 1 seed in the West, because I could possibly see it coming. Maybe they'll get number 2. That's probably where it's heading, and that's really, really, really bad news, because, well, maybe it's good news. Maybe. Because I think the Minnesota Wild are going to wind up with the 7th seed. I do believe that. I do not think the Wild win this game in Chicago. I don't feel it right now. I'm going to go with the Blackhawks, even though the Wild have been playing them, well, they've played them okay this year. I don't like the way the Wild are playing of late. The good news is the Wild have played very well against our division. It just seems like the top teams in the East, we just don't beat them. And the top teams over there in that Pacific Division, the Wild have struggled. Well, the top team, Anaheim, the Wild just, again, lose a close one to Anaheim a couple weeks back. Same old story. We beat up on the Kings, which is awesome. We beat Vancouver, teams like that, because we know Vancouver well, because we used to be in their division. We've been playing against St. Louis well. I like that. But the Chicago situation has me pretty scared. I think the Blackhawks win. Maybe the Wild squeak out a point, because I think the Wild will get up for this game in a big way. But unfortunately, we are on a back-to-back, and that sucks. Maybe this will be a huge, huge win for the Wild. And quite frankly, if the Wild win this game, boy, oh boy, then it'll get my confidence, and I'm sure their confidence right back up where it needs to be. They could beat anybody. I just don't like the way we're playing against Eastern Conference teams lately, and it's bugging the hell out of me. I mean, how would you feel if the Wild were able to escape this insanely difficult Western Conference only to lose in the Stanley Cup Finals to the Rangers? Wouldn't that suck? It would really suck. Or like a Detroit or something. That would suck. I think we ultimately would beat Detroit in a 7-game series. I think we'd catch up and beat them. Maybe we'd lose the opener, but then we'd ultimately win in like 6 or 7. I kind of think the Wild would. Against the Blackhawks, I have no idea. I really like the way the Wild kind of took over things late in that, on Tuesday, February the 3rd, the way we flat out shut them out. But the Blackhawks are certainly not playing that way right now. They're playing some great hockey. And the Blackhawks, I have them winning 3-2. Possibly a shootout, but I'll have the Blackhawks with a regulation win right now. I'm going to stick with the regulation win. I have the Wild with a shootout win officially against the Winnipeg Jets. That's where I stand there. Scary situation with the Blackhawks, though. I'm not real comfortable with the possibility of the Wild and the Blackhawks in the playoffs again because, well, it's kind of like the theme right now. This is the most important conversation, I think, right now with the Wild. It's the Chicago Blackhawks because, well, it's been, the last 2 years, the Wild lost to the Chicago Blackhawks in the playoffs. The first year they got shelled. We somehow escaped with a win after being down 3-0. Lottie freaking da. Second time around, the Wild played really well after starting out really poorly. The Wild kind of rebounded, took control of the series, and then ultimately could not hang on, and we lost at home in 6 against the Blackhawks because they're killers. When they're in a situation where they can eliminate a team, they eliminate them, and that's why they've won 2 Stanley Cups. Minnesota Wild, should they wind up playing the Blackhawks once again in the playoffs? Well, it's kind of like a stock. It's like a stock. You know how there's that wall that the stock cannot get past for the longest time? Like for so many times, the stock. Okay, it's $11, it's up to 12, and here's 13. Boom! Back down to 12, 11, and maybe back to 12 again. Boom! 13 cannot cross number 13. But when that stock clears 13, bombs away, baby. And off to $16, $17 a share. Maybe, who knows. But there you go. There's always a time that it may come back down to earth, but that thing goes on a run, and you're making some money if you are invested in that stock down in the 10s and 11s. It bombs away for you, and you're excited. Same situation with the Minnesota Wild. Could they finally get past this? If they finally, it could ultimately be the perfect storm for the Wild, because if they do fail, if you're gonna become a championship caliber team, you got to beat that one team that's won the championship. That's kind of the bully, the big bad bully in the neighborhood. And if the Wild beat the Blackhawks, I think it's bombs away in Stanley Cup Finals. Here we come. It's just my opinion. That is just my opinion. Bombs away, baby. Thursday, April the 9th, the Minnesota Wild head to the Nashville Predators, and all of a sudden, we know how to play them. We know how to score against Patrick Rinne, and the Wild are going to win that game. I think. I think the Wild are going to win. I'd like to believe it. Boy. It's like I want to be uber positive, but I can't pick them to win every game. That's the thing, because I like us against St. Louis and Nashville. And these games right here could be the reason the Chicago Blackhawks win the division, should the Minnesota Wild knock off Nashville and St. Louis in these final 2 regular season games. What's going to happen? Maybe Jason Zucker returns as well, as that's been the talk for a while now, that Jason Zucker, well, he's been skating and he's been practicing full contact and all that good stuff, but they're like, no, not yet. Nope, not yet. They're playing it very carefully because of that type of injury. It's just you don't just put a guy out there until you're absolutely positively sure he's ready for full-time NHL hockey again. But we'll see. I do think Zucker will be back in the postseason, which could give us a really good problem to have, which is the big D word: depth. That would be fantastic. But back to the point here, I do think the Minnesota Wild can beat the Nashville Predators. Absolutely. We've won the last 2 matchups with them. Looked like Nashville owned us early on. But the good news is, hey, you know what? Point-wise, we're looking good in the season series because we got 1 point way back on December 20th, 0 points on January 10th. At that point, Nashville had 3 points, the Wild had 1. But then, we didn't win in regulation the second time, but we had a regulation win at 1 point. which made it 3-3, and then we won to make it 5-4. So the Wild right now would be leading in the point battle against Nashville, which is amazing considering how dominant that team was earlier in the season. So yeah, if either team wins in regulation, they win the series outright. I think the Wild at least get a point in this game. At least I will right now go with a 3-2 win for the Wild in regulation, and they win the series outright. I think the Minnesota Wild wind up with 100 points on the season, because at 96, I think the Wild at this point will have 4 wins at 4 points. I think the Wild ultimately escape this group of teams with 4 points at least. So the Wild will achieve a 100-point season for the second time in the history of the franchise, which is fantastic. 3-2 win in regulation against Nashville, which ultimately could help the Blackhawks win the division. Is that good or bad? I don't know. If you're seeking a Stanley Cup championship, that could be good, because ultimately you got to beat that certain team, and once you beat them, the confidence level goes ape bleep. Just like when the Bulls beat Detroit, their confidence went up. Just like when the Blackhawks escaped. I can't even remember who they played in the West Finals that year. Oh, man. But when the Kings beat the Blackhawks, I mean, they knew they could beat anybody. When they knocked the Blackhawks off in the Western Conference Finals, and back in 2012, they knew they had it. And when they beat the Blackhawks again last year, they knew they had it. See, it's one of those type of situations. The big bad Blackhawks. Minnesota heads to St. Louis Saturday, April 11th. Saturday, April 11th. And yes, ultimately this means the Wild make the playoffs. But there is still a chance the Wild could miss, because if they come out flat in these 4 games and we finish this thing with maybe only 2 points and we end up with 98 on the year, who knows? And that would be pretty sad if you get 98 points and you can't even make the playoffs. It's possible, but highly unlikely, I do believe, because the LA Kings still have only 90 points. So, the odds of the Wild not making it very slim. I think we wind up with a 7th seed, ultimately. That is my opinion. We'll see what happens. Maybe we'll get the 6th. Who knows? Minnesota heads to St. Louis. Our success rate has really gotten awesome against the Blues. What's also crazy is, like I was saying, how the Wild they found a way to score on Patrick Rene, and they've also majorly found a way to score on Brian Elliott, and I think we can score on Jake Allen. I think so. Yeah, luckily it's not that. Luckily it's not that Vancouver goalie that the Wild could not score on at all. That was quite frustrating. But the Wild success rate against St. Louis has been quite positive of late. But I don't know. I have a strange feeling. The Wild are going to lose either against Nashville or St. Louis. I may switch it around. I'll just kind of throw it as I think the Wild win one of these 2 in regulation and lose the other in regulation, ultimately. Maybe a shootout, but I'll say regulation. I'm not going to pick a shootout every game here. I say I'm going to change it to that, because it's hard to say which one we win here. Our success rate actually has been more positive against St. Louis, so I'll have us losing to Nashville 3-2. 3-2 against Nashville, because you notice I'm never picking 4 goals ever because of Devin Dubnyk. I think the Wild win against the St. Louis Blues 4-2 in regulation in St. Louis. I think we wrap up the regular season with our 100th point. 100-point season for the Minnesota Wild. Maybe, that'll be 100 points, maybe 101 if we get a shootout loss against Chicago or Nashville. But we will finish with triple digits on the season with a 4-2 win against the St. Louis Blues. That is just my opinion. Possibly there could be a flip-flop between those 2, but I think we win one of those 2 games. I will choose St. Louis out of those 2, ultimately, not Nashville. I could see the Predators kind of rebounding. I just kind of have that vibe right now, and I think the Blues are the worst team in the league historically they're the worst ever when it comes to having a great season, looking fantastic, and finishing like goats every bleeping season. 1967 Stanley Cup Finals, 1968 Stanley Cup Finals, haven't been back ever since. They've had so many unbelievably great seasons for so many years. They've had a couple down years, but they've made the playoffs about 45 times practically in that stretch. I'm just kind of giving you a number, but they've made the playoffs a lot of times, a lot. And they've come up empty so many times, and they've had the number 1 record, they've had the number 2 record, the number 3 record, and they lose in the first or second round every single bleeping time. I don't even remember them in the Western Conference Finals. The only real memory I remember I only have of them actually overachieving in the playoffs was when they swept the Chicago Blackhawks in the first round. the year that the Minnesota North Stars failed to make the postseason and the final game of the season when we lost to the Detroit Red Wings, and then packed up and moved to that place. Yeah, Dallas. That deal. That's the last time I remember the St. Louis Blues overachieving in the playoffs. If I'm wrong, forgive me, but I'm pretty damn confident in my memory on that one. So with that, there it is. The Minnesota Wild do make the playoffs with 100 points on the season. Maybe more, but I will stand with 100 at this point in time. There's still a slim chance we miss the playoffs, but I doubt it. So 100 points, probably the 7th seed, most likely. And I am predicting the Minnesota Wild and the Chicago Blackhawks wind up in the playoffs again, which was going to piss everybody off, I got to think. I'm not going to be happy about it either. But if you're going to ultimately break through that ceiling and go all the way, that's the team you got to beat in order to do that. So there it is. But before I sign off, though, I would like to mention the Brave the Wild Twitter, at Brave the Wild. That's right, at Brave the Wild. And the Facebook page. Don't forget to join that. That would be much appreciated. Wouldn't it, though? Look up Brave the Wild, Minnesota Wild Show on Facebook. Would be greatly appreciated. Go there and click like. Would like to welcome Tim McNiff, just in case he's listening. And Jeff Dubé also clicked like, joined the page a few months back. I'm not sure if he listens, or if he was just being nice and figured he'd, click like. Maybe he listened to it once and was like, oh, God, this guy's brutal. I hope not. I don't know. But interestingly enough, though, Tim McNiff, the former sports guy on KARE 11, and he's been like a news anchor and such on KARE 11. He's been all over the place, and he's had a lot of success with KARE 11 in the past and the present. He it seemed ever since he joined the page, some more people have been popping up, and thank you. It seemed like they always have been friends with Tim McNiff. I don't know if he told them to join or what it is, but maybe. It's just interesting. I don't know if it's just the way Facebook is when they try to relate friends with stuff and, this major person likes this page, so you might as well check it out. That might be what's been going on. But if Tim McNiff has been telling anybody and he's listening, I would like to say thank you very much. I really appreciate it. And Jeff Dubé, if you're listening, I really, really enjoy your show. You swear a lot, and it's kind of funny, but it's a great show, especially the Wild Wednesdays. Jeff Dubé show, fantastic. He doesn't need my help. I appreciate his, though, if he ever does give it. He doesn't need my help, but hey, you know what? I will endorse the Jeff Dubé show, big time. Yeah, I will endorse it. Just hope you don't run away and say his show's 50 billion times better than mine, so why the hell would you listen to Brave the Wild? I want to encourage you guys, please do tell a friend about the show. Greatly would appreciate it. This show needs more and more love. It's been getting better, and yeah, the things have been growing, and that's good, but it's got a long way to go. So I just want to really tell those of you that have been listening for a long time, I really do appreciate you. As I went on and on about that on the last episode, getting to episode 100, it was just so nice, so fulfilling to get there. And again, want to thank you all so much, and really do hope that you can bring in some more listeners if you can. So bring in some more friends, per se, to help this show grow. And those of you out there that have iTunes, would you be so kind to write a review about Brave the Wild, especially if you like the show? It would be greatly appreciated. A 4 or 5 star, even 3 star if you don't think it's fantastic, but it's enjoyable enough for you to listen. I can live with that. Anything below that, come on. No, it's not that bad. It's just not. There's no reason for you to give it 1 or 2 stars for this show. Write a review if you could. Would be greatly appreciated. Tell us what you'd like about the show. Maybe just something you'd like to see improved is also welcome on the Facebook page or even on iTunes if you don't want to post on the Facebook page, whatever it is, or Twitter, at Brave the Wild for there. Really been enjoying the interaction with some of you on the Brave the Wild Twitter as well. It's been fantastic. Not sure how many of you listen, but for those of you that do, thanks again so much, and I enjoy the interaction and such. It's been very, very cool. So with that, I guess that's it. I will give you a shout out if you mention, if you write a review on iTunes about Brave the Wild, it would be greatly appreciated. Yeah, I would give you a shout out and a thank you and all that good stuff. So with that, let's wrap things up before I twist things any further. I'm going crazy right now. So thank you all again so much for listening. We will be back next week to preview some playoff hockey. At least I would hope so. At least I would hope so to preview some playoff hockey, and get ready for the Chicago Blackhawks because I think they're coming.